Pondoff's Anonymous is brought to you in part by McKelvey Insurance. Let's be honest, insurance sucks until you need it. That's why I fuck with McKelvey Insurance. These folks aren't just slinging quotes like robots. They're actual humans who solve real problems. Whether it's personal or commercial insurance, McKelvey works with over 30 companies to make sure you've got the best coverage at the best price without the bullshit. You're not just a number to them. They build real relationships. So when life changes, or your rates do, they've got your back. They'll shop around again and again to make sure you stay protected without ever overpaying. Call or text 618-623-0080 or hit up McKelveyINS.com. That's McKelvey, McKelveyINS.com. McKelvey Insurance. Quick solutions to real-life insurance problems. Anywhere in Illinois or Missouri.
Well, what's up, everybody? We made it to a second episode, Chaz.
That's my most ever.
Needed to hear that with Chaz, the Chaz and Pondoff show, hosted by Chaz and Pondoff. Since we've been together, we came up with this title, and I love it. And I was telling somebody the story the other day, and per usual, when I share a pearl of wisdom from you, their eyes kind of light up.
Or gloss over, either one.
Why don't you kind of share with me share with the audience what you were sharing with me on how the name kind of hit you?
Oh, sure. So this is something that I would give most credit to you for, where you've been doing the underground and you've been doing the recovery ministry and you've been putting together sermons and you've been putting together these talks and these conversations where the whole intention is for you to share a pretty deep, pretty spiritual message with a group of people who are really, really in the throes of change and in the throes of addiction and loss. And that the feedback that you are most likely to get, the thing that people come up afterward and say is, oh man, I needed to hear that. And I have been fortunate enough to have some similar experiences as somebody that gives trainings to therapists and social workers and helpers and listening professionals. I've been very fortunate that I get up and I say something that hopefully resonates, that hopefully allows people to know that the work that they're doing is important, that being there for people in the hardest times of their life is really important. And nothing matters to me more than that opportunity to really support people, but also support the helpers. And people, if I'm really fortunate and I really do a good job, people will come up to me and say, oh man, I really needed to hear that. That was, I really needed to hear that. It's been really tough, or it's been a hard year and I really needed to hear that. And it's a very humbling experience because of course it's also normally just a very human moment. It's not, neither you nor I are known for being particularly profound. And so it would be something where we probably just said something that is at the core of humanity, something about be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself. This is hard work. We're out here doing our best. And the response is, gosh, I needed to hear that. And I thought like I would be really honored to just sit with you and talk back and forth. And if one single person were to hear anything we say and go, damn, I needed to hear that would be it. That would be exactly what we're here for.
It makes it all worth it. Time, commitment. You've had a long, we record on Monday nights and it's your longest day. Probably I could say the same as, Mondays are always long getting back at it in any type of 8 to 5, but it is something that I resonated with me the more I sat with it. And kidding around, I would argue that you are often profound, but there's also a spirituality to it, in my opinion, that we could say something that it could be mundane and timing, whether it's a God thing or a spiritual thing, it meets somebody at the right time where they're in a room and heard it and going through the exact circumstance that put them in that room and they walk away with that. I've been on the receiving end of that so many times, whether it's something you've said, something that I heard a sermon at church, or even a podcast or something on the right. I mean, sometimes it can be walking past a stranger on the street.
For sure.
And you know it when you say it. Like, you don't just say that. That's not something you just say to bullshit. It's usually coming from somewhere deep in like a deep sense of relief in a gut that I felt seen for a second by something you said. So,
yeah. And you said it right there too. It's not so much always going to be the profundity of the message. It's going to be the timing. I've gotten in a habit where I always quote one of my mentors who has come to train us a couple of times, Bob Niemeyer, who's a grief trainer. And I notice I keep doing that. I say, Bob Niemeyer said, Bob Niemeyer said, Bob Niemeyer. And before long, everybody in my day-to-day life is like, was it Bob Niemeyer that said that? But, Bob pretty frequently says to remember that the right intervention at the wrong time is the wrong intervention.
Yeah.
And that is
God,
where
that hits,
where the idea of like, gosh, I needed to hear that comes in. It's like it usually is like the timing. It is just like, okay, then today must mean something. This moment now has a weight to it and a gravitas to it. And because I've never said anything to anybody that they didn't kind of already know at some level, right? You're not going to resonate with something that is just like totally brand new. I'm not speaking in physics,
Sure.
like, and so those moments where it's like, okay, the timing is right too. Like, I want to know if you hear something and say, gosh, I needed to hear that. I also want to know, like, gosh, what about you is just open just enough right now, because the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing.
I think I chuckling because I was workshopping a parenting situation with Charlie the other day, and you gave me this wisdom that I made. The intervention might have been the right intervention, just the timing was a little off as he was having a bit of a come apart and dysregulated moment.
Charlie's a good teacher.
Yeah, sure is. He sure is. He's a wise 12-year-old, unfortunately.
Yeah. I like that. I like that the other day when he was just like, well, Mom said that Dad was going to talk to me about it. And then he was like, Dad said Mom was going to talk to you about it. And I'm just like, well played.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well played.
He got his hooky day.
I love that. Sure. Good for him.
And then some, because we just got the text on the way over here that there's no school again tomorrow.
Perfect.
So Sonic the Hedgehog is,
he'll catch up.
He'll be he was winning a dunk contest with KD
nice.
On NBA 2K.
Yeah, he put together quite a franchise. I saw.
Did you see that Spurs roster?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Wemby, LeBron, I
Jordan.
think 93 MJ.
He's got Jordan on the Warriors. It was looking great. But Jordan, he's got to keep Jordan in. He's like, I can't take him out even when his stamina's low. Well, he's
MJ.
He's 60.
That's smart. I appreciate him being smart there. So yeah, I wanted to start off because it was a low bar with calling it the Chaz and Pondoff show.
It was working for a minute.
Sure. So and it was super profound. So I'm glad we nailed that down, and producer Jeff came up with a logo. Next thing, we'll have to get a hat or something, and
big shout out to Jeff.
Get some merch, but he wants to meet you for coffee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about to be on the books. We've been back and forth.
I'm going to out him here. He goes, you think Chaz would really get coffee with me? I go, don't take this the wrong way, Jeff, but Chaz would get coffee with just about anybody.
I'm honored to have coffee with Jeff. I'm so excited about it.
I go, so it's a yes and yes. He'll have
so
coffee
excited about it.
with the guys at Southwest Correctional.
I also
facility.
loved making a pot of coffee at the end of the night. That's a good way to get in trouble at my old job. But you make a pot and have everybody come fill their cup before we're done for the day, and that was a big deal. Well, and to say something about myself too, I don't. As you know, I don't drink, and I never have. So I'm not in recovery or in any kind of recovery at all. I've never drank. I've never done drugs. Over time, coffee shops, that's my socializing, like it's like going to get a cup of coffee for a long sit for 2 or 3 hours of hanging out. Like that's home base for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So to Jeff, yes, Chaz will get coffee with anybody, but he wants to get coffee.
Absolutely. 10 out of 10.
So as you're cutting and editing, make sure your message is received.
Yeah.
Speaking of
1000%.
cutting and editing, that red button is on, right? Yeah. Don't touch anything, but yeah, we're good. You see a red light.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Perfect.
No,
All
I'm
right.
nervous.
No, I think it's good. Zoe did it.
Yeah.
Let me check.
Yeah, just take a second. Welcome to Needed to Hear That, episode 2. Yeah. That was 30 seconds of filler where we doubted Zoe, and that was unfair because Zoe would never.
Because now I'm going to hear about how 2 men doubted a female.
Yeah.
She's an aggressive feminist.
I distinctly doubted myself, which is my norm.
So, you watched those games last night?
Yeah.
I hit that 3-leg parlay, but we're not here to talk about gambling.
We're not going to talk about gambling.
Not this episode, at least. I'm not ready for that.
Process addictions are a real thing. But the right intervention at the wrong time. It's the wrong intervention.
We may have to have your wife join us for that show if we're going to talk about my process addiction.
Yeah, I would imagine the gambling discussion will not include me. It'll probably just be you and her, and then I'll let you have that one.
Your lovely wife Holly, also a clinician, social worker,
best.
yeah, and it is fun getting together with you, Ashley, and her. Man, I can just sit back on the couch with Meadow and Gloria and let y'all try to do your thing.
One of the best things about that particular list, Ashley, Holly, and myself, is it shows how unique everyone's approach is. You're never going to hear the 3 of us talk about therapy the same way.
No, that's true.
We all 3 love it. Like, it's an obsession of mine. It's a huge part of my identity, and it's what I want to talk about like feverishly all day. I want to talk shop. I mean, that's always kind of been me. But the 3 of us have very different styles. We also have very different views of therapy, approaches to therapy, and still like love it. Still have like this great appreciation for working with people and meeting with people, and I would say Holly is a great example of this. The people that Holly sees for therapy she is an expert on that timing that we're talking about. They really deeply appreciate what she says when she says it. And if you know Holly has the ability to be direct, but being direct doesn't mean anything about your timing. It doesn't mean anything about whether or not you know how to say the right thing at the right time. Mm-hmm. She does, right? Like she knows how to say something that is going to be received as authentic and warmly, and is coming from somebody who, that you really trust. And so she's a stud with stuff like that. Of course, so is Ash. Ash is a totally different style. Mm-hmm. Totally different style of therapist and what we would call person-centered. We're all 3 very what's called person-centered. And then I am, weirdly enough, probably the least directive
sure
of the 3.
It's not weird at all to me because I know you guys so well. Yeah. I often will say to Ashley when she yelled at me yesterday that I was being codependent on something, I said, would you say that to one of your clients? You're not my fucking client.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah. You don't treat family.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So just
so you have the opportunity to say to somebody who you love, you're being codependent right now. I can't say that in any other part of my life.
So we were texting back and forth last night after the games. I was had a nice dopamine rush from hitting that 3-team parlay.
Parlay, sure.
God bless Sean McVay blowing the end of that game for those Rammies. So sorry, Enos. But and then you text and was talking about just hey, we are self-deprecating the fact that on PA and PAFO we don't do a whole lot of what they call show prep and we don't. Which is it's intentional. We joke around about it because we like to come and be conversational and just bullshit. And then on the PA side of it, we want to let the guests kind of take us where we go. A little bit different here. we like to talk a little bit about what we're going to come to the table with. Because I mean, I view you, you're a teacher. And I think knowledge is power here, and we could go all night on hundreds of different topics, but you mentioned last night that talking about change is something that's been kind of on your heart and soul to talk about tonight.
Sure.
And so what did you? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to open the floor to you, and the change has been, it's big in recovery, obviously, and I mean, before somebody says no shit, it was coincidentally at a I hate to say this because I don't want to trigger you, but an AI business conference. Chaz going back and forth with that AI a little bit right now.
I'm struggling.
Yeah. We were at this AI conference for some other business shit that I'm involved in, and the CEO from FedEx spoke. He was a keynote speaker. This was a who's who of keynote speakers from where, and I'm in the room, so it's very humbling. But there's only been 2 CEOs in FedEx's history, which I thought was pretty fascinating. They've been around forever. I think the first founder and CEO president was around for like 32 years.
I like the founder. It's Fred Smith.
Is that
and Art Smith, was he the offensive coordinator from the Steelers, who was the coach of the Falcons?
Oh yeah,
that's his kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know more about it than I do. Well, I think the quote is attributed to him talking about the logistical industry going through, I mean, changes after changes, going from, delivering packages by air or across the country overnight, all these changes. And he said that if you don't like change, you're going to hate extinction. and it hit me. Here I'm at a business conference, and it hit me in the recovery side. And so I text you that because I've been wanting to talk about this or hear about it. And it is, we are, for some reason, I think baseline human beings fucking terrified of change.
I hate it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something that it's worth acknowledging that a person who, like a human being, does not like change. We just don't like change. We have too much of a history associating too many things with threat. We're not the biggest or the strongest or the toughest out in the wild, and so we had to be very, very mindful of any kind of change in environment, any kind of weather. We don't have thick fur, we don't have sharp teeth, we're not big, we're not strong, so if it's like suddenly going to get real cold and we don't know about that, we're in trouble.
Sure.
So change has never been our favorite thing. It's we just naturally resist it. And so to me, as somebody who's forward facing, compassionate, right? What I really care about is trying to understand humans in their minute to minute experience, trying to find like the common humanity that we all share. It's important to acknowledge that you're gonna have a hard time with any change. That hard time might come and go. Like it might be something really, really simple, but if you just absolutely have to leave your house at 7:30 instead of 7:45 starting tomorrow, it's gonna impact you for a week. You're gonna be okay, you're grown, you're gonna make it happen, but we just don't really like it. And so then when we get into the highest needs of change, so things like addiction, mental health, even really, really difficult relationships that might be abusive or damaging or otherwise, we just look at how obviously bad it is and just go, well, just stop it. Just get out of there. The one therapy skit that is kind of a classic is there was that old show Mad TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
They had Bob Newhart on one time, and he's talking to a woman, and I don't remember all of it, but I remember that he's talking to a woman and he goes, my form of therapy only takes 15 minutes and then you'll be good forever. But you have to be serious, because as soon as you say you want to do it, the clock starts and it's 15 minutes. So you're going to tell me what you have going on, and then I'm going to start the clock. And then after 15 minutes, you're done. You're never going to need any help again. And so the person kind of describes what a lot of people would clock as a somewhat classic form of obsessive compulsive disorder. So she's having a hard time. She checks the lock a lot, the stove a lot. It's kind of stereotypical.
Make sure we're recording.
And he says, yeah. And he says, okay, are you ready? And she's like, sure. And he goes, stop it. Just stop it. And he just starts repeating, stop it. And as heavy-handed and funny as it is, that is not terribly different from how we treat people when they are in the highest need for change.
Yeah.
The people at the highest need for change, the person who is in a difficult or abusive relationship, the person that is in the throes of addiction, the person who has really, really difficult mental health concerns, and people are saying, take medicine, right? It's this, we take the obviousness of things don't have to be this way, and we ignore the humanity of change is really hard for all of us. And I just thought that it's important to have, especially going as we do some show prep here for needed to hear that, is to have topics and to have discussion that brings about this common humanity. What is the actual things that face humans day to day, rather than getting into what might be the weeds of certain clinical dialogue and things like that are not, they're not unimportant, but I'm not going to profess that I am an expert on diagnostics and so I can tell you everything about mental health. But I have had the honor of sitting with an awful lot of people who are trying to navigate change. It's even one of my favorite AA quotes, right? Like, anything I've ever surrendered has claw marks on it.
Nice.
It's just great. That, like, it's just a great statement that's
so true.
Change is tough. And screaming. Yeah, the whole way.
And when you were saying, when I'm thinking about these situations, the serious ones, the abusive relationships, I mean, even as serious as a lot of people stay in a job that is
great example,
completely draining them mentally, emotionally, because of the change of leaving that job is so scary. It's just rattling through all the people that I know that have been stuck in situations where, if it were only so easy, I mean, but to his point, you stop, you can, but honoring the person. Yeah. But this is scary as fuck.
Well, giving some language, not so much to it's not to steal hope from change. Right. It's not to say like, hey, leave people alone, let them do what they're going to do. Right. Like, there's a really good, I think it's really good, keep it on the eye, mental health marketing campaign right now. There's a commercial with Terry Crews, and there's a commercial with like some Final Fantasy video game characters where it's like, keep it awkward. And the message is kind of like, if you have a friend who's struggling with mental health and they may tell you over and over again that they're not and they're fine, like, it's better to risk it and just be a little bit obnoxious and be like, you good? You good? Everything okay? You good? Let me know. It's better to kind of like stay in that dialogue of checking on somebody, even if it's kind of uncomfortable. Because of course we want to keep hope in the conversation with change. But when we try to understand change, we have to start with, none of us like it. Like, none of us like it. And now it's even, I say now, the last few years is an even weirder exchange because we're post-COVID. Like, we have no idea what the mental health impact, big picture of being locked down is going to be. And you see it on like a snow day. You see it on a weekend here where it's 0 degrees and you get 8 to 12 inches of snow. And there's already, you've got people that would walk barefoot through that snow to make sure they could get some of their normalcy, because it's just so uncomfortable to have that kind of change. So to start a dialogue about change, you start by acknowledging that it's just not for the weak. It's we're all struggling with change. It's tough.
And I think what that quote's getting at too is that it's obviously inevitable.
Right.
It happens throughout the day, multiple times a day, and I think what they're basically saying, and what is how I kind of relate and have to kind of pep myself through changes, is that complacency can kill, especially in And in a recovery stand, whether you're in active addiction or in recovery, if you're not moving and growing in your recovery, and which is changing daily and learning, because you've said this before, I don't know if it was on this podcast or when you spoke at Underground, that, you know, you're a new person an hour from now than you were. Complacency, whether you can use it, and I think he's using it in a business stance, it's so true, but it's also complacency just will swallow us whole, and change is scary, but it's inevitable. And some, I mean, for a lot of people, life saving, if they're willing to stop it or whatever that is.
Well, there's a lot of language in Buddhism of, you know, impermanence is one of the three marks of existence. There's suffering, impermanence, and no self. So it's basically this idea that the ways that you know that you are alive is you will suffer. But what suffering is in Buddhism is basically wanting anything to be different than it is. So suffering isn't just necessarily like pain, right? The kind of translation of the term dukkha, which is dukkha. Dukkha sometimes is translated as a axle that doesn't fit right on the wheel. That like life is an axle that doesn't fit right on the wheel, right? It rolls, but it grinds, and so like the first mark
Pressure's
of existence,
you
know, it's just like the weather changed, and the first mark of existence is that life is suffering. Life is, you're going to want certain things to be different than they are, and that's going to cause suffering, right? I mean, something as simple as like you probably don't want to die. A lot of people don't want to die. And so then that creates suffering, right? Like some people would like to live forever. Some people act as if they're going to live forever. And it's because they don't want to necessarily look at some of the space of, oh yeah, there are things that are different than I want them to be. The second mark of existence is impermanence, is that nothing is inherently forever. Nothing is inherently permanent. And so that is the language that is given to the idea of change. Like you have to know that everything that you see will go away. It will not be permanent.
That scares me and makes me hopeful at the same time, because there are things I want permanent.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And there are things that I want so fucking temporary.
Yeah.
And we say it, Ashley's been open about some of her chronic depression, and she always has to remind herself when she's really going through it that this is temporary. It's not final. It does get better, hills and valleys, it's a good pep talk. So for some things, that's great news. For other things, yikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really scary.
And that's that is the old Ram Dass quote that we're all just walking one another home. Like that is the reminder that as you navigate that things are impermanent, or you navigate that things will change, everything is moving towards whatever you believe is kind of the end, right? Like, I mean, if you want to be spiritual about it, if whatever you believe in the afterlife, but Ram Dass was basically saying that like we're all kind of walking towards our impermanence in some form or fashion. So we're walking one another home, right? Like none of us know how to do this right. None of us know how to handle this. There is no single way to get sober. There's no single way to cope with grief. There's no single way to navigate depression. So like all of these changes just flood and flood and flood over and over and over again. And what we end up needing is one another,
I was just going to say, I felt so not lonely in that quote as you were talking, and as you were saying that quote, that was the first feeling that, as scary as it is, I'm not alone in that equation. We're all walking, especially I just think of, my inner circle of walk through life with, that I don't want to ever change. It's not forever, but I'm not alone in the walk.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just walking one another home. And there's, Ram Dass is good for a quote. He talked a lot about impermanence. I listened to a audio of him one time, he was sitting in big room of people, and he's barefoot, and he's.
This is a Buddhist, Ram Dass?
Ram Dass was a teacher, Ramdass. His name was Richard Alport, and he was one of the psychedelic researchers with Timothy Leary.
Microdoser?
Yeah, when they were doing research at Harvard, at Harvard, they were doing a lot, and then eventually, he changed routes a bit, and he was a teacher for a long time, and he'd do something like stare down at his foot for a minute in front of. He's kind of a funny guy, he'd stare down at his foot, and he'd be like, "Man, look at that foot." That is a perfectly decaying 58 or 68-year-old foot, like just
don't look this guy up.
Yeah, just the awareness of just, you could look at it and be like, damn, am I that old? Is my body changing that much? Or you can be like, my body seems to be decaying at the rate that they are expected to decay. And so he kind of had that awareness, and there's a line there where you don't want to embrace. A lot of people don't benefit from embracing some kind of nihilistic, then I guess nothing matters, it all changes, suffering's going to happen. A lot of people don't benefit from that mindset. Mm-hmm. Also, in most spiritual circles, that's not really what they're teaching, right? They're not teaching nothing matters and it all goes away in the end. That's not, from what I know, that's not what the Buddha was teaching. I had never met him, so I can't say for sure, but he, his body was impermanent, and he was willing to talk about that. And so when we get into these ideas of something like you said, like depression, the impermanence of something, that this is not going to be forever, that has to be something that an individual can navigate how to feel that on their own. Mm-hmm. Right? Like me looking at somebody else and saying this too shall pass is not the most helpful feedback, right? Like that's not going to.
I love my mother, but I've heard that before.
It's just, it's just not something that you want from outside of you. It's something that you want from, you want that call coming from inside the house, sure. Right? Like, it's not a great thing to hear from somebody else. And so, and to give the hope back, like you said, like to making big changes with, somebody just making a big commitment to like changing a job. Mm-hmm. That brings grief into the equation, that brings fear into the equation, that brings self-worth into the equation, that there's a lot of changes that people go through where their basic question that they're hearing rattle around internally is like, well, who do I think I am? Like I can get a better job, or I can have a better life, or I can have better people. Like, who do I think I am? That was one of the core versions of the kind of the lore of the Buddha's enlightenment, was that when he sat under the tree where he eventually became enlightened, that Mara, who's kind of the god of attachment, and Mara sees that Siddhartha is probably going to figure it out. Relatively, think of like temptation in the desert with Jesus, there's a point where the devil's just like, why don't you just like knock this off? Just make a drink of water, bro. Like you'll be fine. And so Mara's doing the same thing. Mara's firing arrows at the Buddha. Mara's sending armies as arrows approach the Buddha, they're turning to flowers, like he's gonna figure it out, sure. Like a Star Wars, like Luke is raising the ship out of the bog while Yoda is like, you got it, like we're doing it. And so Mara is coming at him with all this aggression and everything. And then finally they say that Mara had to think of the one thing that would knock him off of this enlightenment, that would make sure that he did not realize awakening. And Mara figures it out, and he just asks him, he just basically says some version of, well, who do you think you are to feel better? And knowing that would destroy him. Right. The Siddhartha's mother died when he was 7 days old. He had core shame. He had real fear that he was figuring things out and learning things and navigating things, and that he was just wrong, and that he was just going to send it in the right direction or the wrong direction. And then as he's sitting under this tree and he's figuring it out, that question is the last one he has to answer. A version of, who in the hell do you think you are to think you get to feel better? and that the answer, which like a lot of answers in Buddhism does not come across as the most clear, is that he touched the ground and just said, well, because the earth witnesses me, which is a kind of a spiritual, kind of pithy way to say, like, I am allowed to feel better because everybody can.
Interesting.
There's no, the earth witnesses me. The earth shook when he touched it because the earth witnesses me, right? Like that's I'm doing the same stuff that everybody else is doing. And so when you think about change, big changes in life, that is one of those things a lot of us go up against and go, well, wait, if I feel better, if I get more successful, isn't that more to lose? Isn't that more to have fall off? Isn't that more risk? Aren't more people going to see me? You know, aren't more people going to notice that I'm doing better and then expect me to do better? and who the hell am I to do better? Aren't there other people having a harder time than me? And since they're having a harder time than me, they should all get better first.
Sure.
I'll just take a ticket. And I am the 4.5 billion sufferingest person on planet. As soon as the other 4.5 billion get right, it's my turn and I'll figure it out. It's really hard. It's
that scene from Beetlejuice where he switches the number with the guy just shrinks his head.
It's like, you know, you get to that space of like, you know, you're going to make a change or you're thinking about a change, or a million people for a million days have told you the same bad advice about what to do next. And you have to reckon with, who am I? Is it okay for me to do something different? Is it okay for me to feel better?
Yeah. I mean, and your answer to your clients that beg that question is
a version of, you know, that I would say, I've never said to anybody, of course, that the earth witnesses you.
Sure,
I've never had that kind of moment.
It was getting deep for a second. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have, you know, I've got to sit with a lot of people that were kind of reckoning with, like, what if it's just not for me?
Right.
And, you know, it's not that there's a lot that I can tell somebody in that moment, but those are moments where I really get to remind somebody that there is a significance to their experience. That any version of their story that they're telling as if it's not significant is missing the mark. We're sitting here to build curiosity and acceptance that, like, you exist. Like, you exist. You deserve the same level of existence as the rest of us.
I mean, I feel I hear you kind of reminding someone that they're worthy.
Yeah. There are so many people that I've gotten to talk to in my life, but then, you know, if I keep it on the idea of therapy, where I am so moved by their experience of trying, of just going out there every day.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't tell you how many people I've known who, I mean, gosh, they've been through awful relationships, and you know what they do? They date. They go and they attempt relationship because we need it, right? Sure. We can say everything we need about it, but it's just that thought of, you know, like somebody who has had 3 jobs in their field, and all 3 of those jobs have kicked their teeth in, and they still work in that field. Yeah. You know, and because they believe in it, right? Because they believe in it, they still, that's tough as nails, man. Like it's amazing. And so when you think about somebody, you know, being like, well, how am I worthy of making this change, or even kind of a very self-deprecating, why me, right? Yeah, like, you know, like there's plenty of other people that probably deserve to feel better before me. That form of apologizing for existing, it breaks my heart. And so the primary way that I have to combat that is to very authentically to be there with somebody and just let them know, like, no, there is no way we're sitting here right now in the context of your story, and it doesn't matter. There's no way. And I'm very fortunate that I get to do that authentically. You know, that's really, I feel that sure. I'm when I'm with people, as you know, I just love people. I just have so much respect for people. We all try so goddamn hard to do so many things we're never going to get right.
Right.
It's just the coolest.
Parenting.
It's just the coolest, you know. And I mean, even as a therapist, it's an abstract job. You know, like it's abstract. It's a lot of holding. It's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of this creating container. It's a lot of trying to create safety. It's a lot of being consistent and being gentle, and all things that I'll never be perfect at, that I will try every day to get good at.
You get a front row seat at some pretty like heroic shit, and people, and I don't mean the like Polaroid version of heroic shit. I mean like somebody that is the most chronically depressed getting out of bed and showing up to therapy is heroic shit.
Yeah.
Somebody that has been destroyed, beaten, abused in a relationship, trying it again is heroic shit.
Yeah. You know, this is a spirituality example, but there was a bit of a crisis, an abuse scandal in a Buddhist sect of the religion of Tibetan Buddhism. And my Buddhist teacher kind of called a meeting of everybody that he was working with and said, you know, we need to talk about this, right? Like this kind of spiritual abuse happens, and this is really, really
human beings.
Yeah, this is really, really important to talk about. And so,
good to hear that Christians aren't the only ones that fucked all that up.
No. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Like it's, you know, you give enough money, enough influence, and enough power. It seems few people seem immune to that. And so we're in this meeting, and there's probably about 40 people there on Zoom, and a lot of people start sharing difficult experiences they've had in religious settings, all the way from just kind of a cult of personality, somebody's ego getting out of control and being kind of mean and being kind of like, you know, inappropriate that way, to full sexual violence against people that were in their spiritual care. And it's so moving that those people are all still willing to have the vulnerability to have a conversation about spirituality. You know, like, and again, if you're somebody that has been damaged in any kind of spiritual or religious setting and you say you're never going to do that again, good on you. That's absolutely fine, right? Like that makes sense, right? But it's just like the thought of still desiring or still moving towards trying to find a safe place to build these connections to something larger than yourself or to these teachings or whatever. You know, there's something incredibly brave about that. I was not in that group. You know, like I can't say how I would handle that. I was not in that group. As people were sharing, I was not somebody that could say, oh, let me tell you my harrowing story of what I went through, you know, like, and so as a matter of fact, I mean, the thing that specifically my teacher said that I thought was really important because of the nature of the scandal was he said, I want to talk about how this is impacting people, and I don't really want to hear from any men. He's like, you know, any female or anybody in a marginalized body whatsoever, anybody from the queer community, the trans community, you guys have the floor. You fellas take a back seat. And that's a good call.
We're not used to that.
That's a good call. That's a good call on his part. But I, you know, to just like you said, I sit with people and I gain so much appreciation. And where things can be so moving is to have the opportunity to call attention to that little change, right? To that, like, you keep coming back, right? Or you're here, you don't miss appointments, or, you know, or just kind of like wins. You know, I am basically, you know, considered kind of a long haul therapist. You know, I'm your therapist as long as you tell me I'm your therapist. You know, I like to work with people for long periods of time and just kind of be a space for them. I think of therapy as
I've known you for 25 years.
Yeah. I think of therapy as a rite of passage, essentially, right? Like, I think that people should have a safe place to go talk about what it's like to be them and kind of navigate their inner life and build appreciation for their inner architecture. And I think that's a lifetime's work. And so as long as I'm able to do it, I want to be there.
You
for
don't
people.
just do it though. You also have a therapist, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Absolutely. Your therapist should have a therapist. Shout out to Dr. Jill.
Well, I was thinking when you were talking earlier about you and the wives, Holly and Ash, they both have therapists. They're both
absolutely.
therapists and therapists.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta be on both sides. You know, you gotta know what it's like.
Uh-huh.
One of the things, if you really want to talk about where you should gain respect for people who go to therapy, is it is hard to talk about yourself for 60 minutes. You know, like 60 minutes where it's on you, right? Like you are the focus of the conversation.
I know how to pivot out of that conversation. With
And
my
we all kind of do. You know, like I have a version of that to keep some of the pressure off of you for a second. My version of that dialogue is I will intellectualize. I will be real quick to be like, don't worry, Dr. Jill. I know exactly what I'm doing. As a result of these previous childhood dynamics, I continue to have moments where my low self-worth interrupts my ability to say no, and I have really poor boundaries in those. and I will take to that in a way that I know can deflect and to kind of move. And, you know, part of having a therapist for a long time is that Dr. Jill will then just kind of let me go and just be like,
sure,
you done?
Yeah, right. I like that.
You know, and so I had to do to Dr. Jill the other day, one of those things I said, I'm going to do something real quick that I know a lot of therapists dread, is I'm going to quote you to you. And I know that's
dreaded, huh?
Yeah, well, it's not so much dreaded. It's just that if somebody were to say to me, Chaz, you know, it really helped me out when you told me I just need to really let that go. And I'm like, damn, I've never told anybody to let anything go or move on, or, you know, that's just not in my language. It's incredibly flattering because, you know, you want people to be able to internalize the experience. But I told Dr. Jill, I said, you know, I still think about it. And Holly and I still quote it a lot, that when I get really, really worried about not wanting to let people down or upset people, you know, you told me one time that I need to remember that to someone, I am who I'm scared of being. And you know, it was great help from her to just be like, yeah, you know, somebody out there thinks that thing about you that you don't want them to think about you. And
so you're not going to bat 1,000.
Yeah, you know, and it was a helpful quote, and she didn't disagree, so I don't think I did a terrible job, but you know, she's pretty.
I've probably attributed some shit to Biofsky that he didn't say, but and you probably.
Yeah, it's just you know, being alive is hard.
My therapist Jessica says that I'm pretty good at the doorknob conversation.
Oh sure, yeah, those are great.
Yeah, I will try to give like 60 seconds with one foot off the door, tell her what I really was coming for, so she can do no work. Yeah.
Well, and that is
AKA I don't have to do any work.
And that's an example of just a great example of why change is so hard. You have an awareness, right? Like there's a very, I teach over at St. Louis University, and at SLU, by the time I have students in the class, there's a couple of things that they've heard in like every class. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I want to talk about them, they're sick of me, right? Sure. Like they're like, you know, I made the mistake one time of having them there's a form of therapy. I'm going to talk about it in a minute here. There's a form of therapy called motivational interviewing. And motivational interviewing is pretty popular, not even just in the therapy or the social work field. You know, I know there's other,
I've heard
there's other fields that learn it. But I had a class use the motivational interviewing book, one of my courses. I said, you know, we're gonna read through this, and but not all of it, you know, just certain sections. So take that for what you will. And I asked whether or not anybody had a problem getting the book, and then somebody in the class was nice enough to say, well, yeah, this is the 4th class in this program that has made me buy this book, so I've kept the same copy. And I'm like, okay, all right, so this is on me. I could know the curriculum, but as a result of how ubiquitous, how it's just kind of everywhere in the program, there's a couple of things in the world of social work and clinical work and therapy and psychology that you learn really, really early on. They're big in addiction treatment too, that you start to eye roll because you've heard them so much, but then eventually you circle back around, like a lot of things, right? You know, I've been in the game a while, so now I think of these things like gold. When
Nutrizone trap works,
you know,
15
years ago, I'm like, you missed me with that motivational interviewing. And it's like, you know, it's still so good. But one of the things that is in that world, and this is addiction treatment, it mentions this a lot, is there's the stages of change. Prochac and DiClemente a long time ago put together, these stages of change. And
those are people's names. Prochac. Yeah. Just got me. Sometimes you get a little over in my head.
Well, I want to cite the work. I don't want to. I didn't create it. But in addiction treatment and mental health treatment, you'll assess for stages of change. So the stages of change are pre-contemplative, contemplative, preparation, action, and then and what happens is you get into these stages of change, you start kind of seeing like where somebody is, right? Are they in this pre-contemplative, contemplative, preparation, action, maintenance? Some people say relapse is in there, depending on what world you're in. They'll say that like that's one of the stages of change is like you start over again.
Okay.
I'm not super well versed in that world. I've just kind of seen it put together that way. But as you might suspect, when somebody is first getting into, let's say, treatment or getting into therapy, they're probably not in like maintenance. They've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
But where the field can get like a little bit lax is every single one of us is in different stages of change for different topics, for different problems, all over the map. And so everybody is what you would consider pre-contemplative about something, meaning the pre-contemplative is just that before thinking, right? I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you're not even going to tell me that I have to stop drinking coffee. I'm not even thinking about not drinking coffee. I am not even thinking about what it might be doing. It's not an issue.
I never thought about Tom dying.
Yeah. And so like, you
I don't know if that's
well, but I mean like, pre-contemplative being like, you might not have thought that your dad or you needed to do a goddamn thing about your life.
Right. Yeah.
That it's like if anything that somebody could have come to you with or gone to Tom with and been like, don't you think that A, B, and C that happened today, don't you think that you should stop 3 of those? Right. And Tom would have just been like,
laughed your ass.
Why, baby, I'm running out of money?
What the fuck?
And so, but it's interesting with the stages of change. That's how complicated change is, right? It's like you are bored to death with it in a graduate school social work program because you've talked stages of change so much, like where the thought of a binary, easy process for change is just, that's not a thing, right? Like everybody is in a lot of different spaces. Most people that come into, addiction treatment, you'd probably say in different spaces or in depending on substances or severity are pretty contemplative, meaning they know there's something up, or they've at least been able to say out loud that this is not good, or I need to make a change, or I realize I have a bit of a problem. And then the other stuff gets pretty obvious, like preparation, might be they really are looking into changes, looking into certain places, what might be a good fit. And then action is really like getting in, working a program, staying in therapy, doing IOP.
Change itself.
Yeah. And then you have kind of a maintenance, which is like really working a program, like you would be somebody with your long-term sobriety. You're in maintenance.
Yeah.
You have made the change. Right. You thought about it. You laid the foundation for it in preparation. You kind of pulled the trigger on, getting help, and then committed to the change. And since then it's been maintenance.
Yeah. And what I want to make sure, at least in my, naive language, is that maintenance is not complacency.
Right.
Maintenance is, and you were talking about this earlier. We're talking about somebody, getting out of bed, going to therapy, and how big of a victory that can be when somebody's where they're at in their life, and you get to witness that. It made me think of people that I talk to often, that whether it's telling them, hey, go talk to somebody about this, a professional, and they go and they call the first therapist they find, and they don't like somebody says something they don't like, and then they quit. No. Like that in itself, the call is a victory.
Huge. Yeah.
Huge. And then saying this isn't a good fit. That's a hard thing. And then calling the next therapist to get it and doing it again.
Yeah.
And it's same thing with, if you're, from what I've gathered, not all psychotropic meds that work for, what could work for you is not going to work for me. And it's some people, I tried Prozac and it fucked me up, so I'm not taking that shit. Instead of saying, that didn't work for me, doc.
Mm-hmm.
Is there okay, try this. I'm going to try. Like those, that's the fight that really builds a sense of self-worth and purpose.
Yeah.
But to the point, and it relates to what you're saying, like the maintenance mode is not, I got this, I'm not going to change back to this relapse.
Right.
Because I'm working this maintenance mode. For me, it's listening and learning. It's being teachable. It's leading the recovery community. It's doing this podcast. It's doing church with clients here at Illinois Recovery Center. It's, being in a community with people, walking home with people that have been on a similar journey, whether it's not just people that are ahead of me in the journey, but also people that are behind me in the journey, because they also help me remember where this was, where it could easily go back to if I get complacent for a day.
If I didn't work with new therapists, like if I didn't do clinical supervision or teach when I teach, I've frequently felt like, gosh, I would pass into irrelevance. It keeps me so sharp and aware. They have the best new knowledge. They have, exactly what is coming up, exactly what needs to happen, exactly what the process looks like. And I just like to tell people in clinical supervision, which basically after, in the therapy world, after you get your master's, and you might have to pass one test after that, but after you have your master's, you do 2 years of clinical supervision with a fully licensed therapist who you meet with like once a week for 2 years, then you take a test.
Let me dumb this down. And a lot of people that come to this podcast to seek you know what that means. There's going to be some people, some Chris Pondoffs out there, because I still chirp Ashley a little bit, and even when she took the job at our church, her supervisor was like, why do you keep calling it supervision? This is just a meeting. Like people, when I hear supervision, it's somebody watching what you do, supervising a session with a client. And that's not what this is, right?
No, it is our field's mentorship.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, when done right.
And I know that
when
I'm
done
asking
right.
for
Yeah, of course. When done right, it's our field's mentorship. It is that the field promises, and of course, like any other promise, it's not always perfectly kept, and I hate that. But the field promises 2 years of mentorship. That your first 2 years of doing clinical work in social work and counseling and marriage and family therapy, you meet with your mentor, who is a fully licensed provider. For supposed to be 4 hours a month for 2 years. You go over cases, you talk about cases, but you also talk about your own experience, right? How are you doing? How are you managing the work? How are you holding up in the work?
Even said the kid lived with Mario for a couple of years.
Yeah. And I love clinical supervision because it is a hard field to start in. You really want to talk about how complicated change is. You get equipped with an incredible amount of knowledge. You are likely very passionate about how much you want to help people, and
very high paying job too, right?
Yeah. They gave me my first job in the field was a 50-cent raise from my job at the rink.
Hey, sharpening skates, baby.
Yeah. And so it was,
my ice makes,
but I only had to work Monday through Friday, which was a big change.
Yeah. You were in a sports weekend.
Yeah. So it was nice. It was a big shift, but you immediately run into how complicated change is, because you show up as a new therapist or a new helper or counselor or whatever role you're in. Think of anybody here at IRC, right? Like every staff you've hired that has been hired here, that IRC has hired, has come in on fire to help, right? Like, just put me in, coach. I'm here to help. I felt
like that when we were, as an investor, as we were, I will say Eric and those guys were painting walls and swinging hammers, and I had faked an knee injury. Couldn't get out of this. But I know that you cannot wait because when you do see transformation, it is, talk about addicting, but yeah, I know that fire, right? And
you just believe, you come into the field, for instance, not just believing in change, but at its core, it's believing in people.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing that while somebody is struggling, they don't have to. And when you start getting all this knowledge or awareness of ways that alleviate suffering, all you want to do is hand it out.
Change the world.
You don't want to keep it to yourself.
No.
You know, you don't want to keep it to yourself.
And you get that. I mean, sorry to interrupt. There was
No.
a guy, we have a commenter on our YouTube page, as Zoe and I are talking about in the latest PAFO, that the first nice thing he said about me was that on our show, I interrupt a lot less.
Oh,
so I appreciate it.
I like the listeners out there.
This guy, he's got it out for me, but at least he's listening. So sorry for interrupting, but I'm just getting fired up because you experience it yourself going through a detox and inpatient, residential, and outpatient, and when you know that's possible. And then for me, I feel like one of the lucky ones. Like I can't keep all this for myself. I got to show people that, fuck, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
The impossible is possible. The change is possible.
And you have to build real compassion and real patience for how many people don't care that you did that. Right. You know, and I think that is, I respect that about people. I respect that change is so hard and so complicated and so unique to the individual that no matter how many good examples you might be able to show somebody, if today ain't the day, today ain't the day.
Right.
You know, like, and I respect the hell out of that. And I have, and as we were talking about, I have seen people, countless people do the impossible every day, especially when the impossible was getting out of bed, you know, when the impossible was eating, you know, I mean, I have seen so many situations where people say that they can't cry because they're worried they'll never stop. And, you know, I mean, I've sat in the presence of some of the most profound, devastating loss you could think of, you know, name gosh, if I went through that, I wouldn't make it to the other side of it, stuff that you can think of. And I sit with people that are doing that. And, you know, if they are not people that are always particularly worried about the pace that the world thinks they should be doing it at, I respect that.
Sure.
I respect that because it's just the process of altering course, even with its inevitability, is daunting on the best days.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people that are actively struggling, you know, they can't name those best days. You know, when I worked in community mental health, you know, you run into a lot of people that just haven't ever had a good day. They've had a hard life, you know, beginning, middle, and until now. And you know, those are people that are expected to probably jump through the most hoops. They have some of the least resources. They are going to be asked to make the most calls to accomplish the smallest tasks, right? To get the smallest little resource box checked. You know, and gosh, those people deserve a lot of support and structure, but mostly just patience. You know, it's tough. I toured Independence Center over on the St. Louis side a couple of weeks ago. One of their executives asked me if I'd come over and give a tour because I might do some supervision for them. And gosh, the guy that gave me the tour was just awesome. And he knew everything, but most of what he knew was the amount of warmth and patience that you have to understand what the people in the building might be going through. And what the Independence Center, for example, has done such a wonderful job of is their programming always considers how hard that the smallest change might be. Right. Like they are ready to remove barriers. Yeah. Even on like a performance level, there's an author I really like named Steve Magnus, who's actually a coach. He's a running coach. And he wrote a book called
Definitely don't know him.
He wrote a book called Do Hard Things. And he wrote a book called Win the Inside Game, I think was the second one. And I'll butcher some of his concepts, but in do hard things, what he's talking about in terms of hard things are not like go out there and run a marathon.
Sure.
He's talking about how things that are hard are novel, right? If it's new, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so he talks about helping people figure out what is the safest point of entry to try something new.
Interesting.
And we glamorize the opposite of that. Right? Like we glamorize like what is the 127 days version of you making a change, right? What is this is life or death. Mm-hmm. So treat it that way, kind of a change. When it's like, well, no, just a question of really getting to know if change is a possibility, if we're going to acknowledge that something's going to give,
mm-hmm.
right? Then the question is more, what is the safest point of entry to that change? What is something that when you think about what it looks like, what is the safest one that you would try when they're like, there's nobody looking, nobody's recording, nobody's going to check on the outcome or anything like that. What's the safest point of entry to try something new? And a lot of people can't give you an answer, but it's definitely a more intricate and a more compassionate question than time to shit or get off the pot because this is your life. As if a person who's having the hardest time they've ever had doesn't know that this sucks. Have you ever had to tell somebody that is in addiction that drugs are not good for them?
Right. No,
they're aware.
I think even Flava Flav probably knows
they're
that.
aware. Shout out to Flav. So I'm in North Carolina. He was fun.
Keynote speaker.
Yeah, he was fun. Always got that clock on. I respect the game.
Drugs are easy to start, hard to quit. Big
unquote.
Oh man. No, this is deep. This is good. And it's I think I hope people that are going through it feel seen and can exhale a little bit and maybe needed to hear it.
Well, yeah, I hope so. Like I said,
if I was any good at this, that would have been like the closing line. But
why don't we just close it?
We can land the plane here.
Yeah, that's it. Shout out to the commenter.
Yeah,
I like him.
Yeah, so just he'll turn on you. They get commenters can be. He's probably a great human. He just likes to maybe troll a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to upset anyone.
No, of course not. That's your.
I like you all.
But somebody out there, Chaz, has been upset by you.
Yeah, Dr. Jill taught me right.
I appreciate this. Before we do wrap it up tonight, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but you've been doing a Substack lately, recently, as of
last few months.
So, are you writing weekly? What are you doing?
I wanted to commit to a weekly writing practice. I do like to write. Mm-hmm. I in my strength training days, I wrote for a handful of sites like Elite Fitness and Barbell Shrugged.
Really?
Yeah. And had a little bit of a cup of coffee as a guy that was talking spirituality in the lifting community.
Okay.
It was cool. It was a window of time before that world changed a little bit, but I got my chance in there. And so I've always enjoyed writing. And I do it anyways. I have, I will sit down and write. I'll get a few things in the hopper, but then I decided that I would start something. I work with another coach on some body image stuff named Jesse Nealand, and Jesse was very helpful in being like, you should write. Just write. Like try Substack, try something that is a low barrier of entry, right? Substack's an easy thing to start and just get going. And so I try to write, the Substack is, find your light source. I try to write something every week that is just a little bit of a commentary on how to be a little bit gentle with yourself and how to find these little moments where maybe you don't give yourself enough grace and, be more kind and patient with what it's like to be you. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of
people
fun.
Just enter their email and it comes right to their inbox.
Yeah. You can subscribe to it.
I'm behind on a couple. Ashley drops everything she's doing and reads it right away.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. How many words?
I mean, you'll be fine.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
No pictures?
Yeah, there's pictures.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
I insert pictures, little page breaks.
When I got introduced to Substack was our friend Nadia Bowles Weber.
Yeah.
I went and saw her She's great.
God,
Praying
cool.
for her. I think she's going through it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think it's the C word. I think
Yeah.
she's got cancer going through it. But so people have been writing for her, and then so I didn't know what really Substack was until her.
I will give Nadia Bowles-Weber so much credit. I mean, I always loved her, read all of her books. She's a cool woman.
God, she's a white whale to get on the podcast.
But when we went to see her, in her Red State Revival, she led a lot of songs.
Yes.
And I just have mad respect for like an individual leading song, right? Like it's like that is the gutsiest.
Scariest day. I couldn't do it.
I speak publicly a lot, and I admit I do not have. I'm very blessed. I do not have a lot of nerves surrounding speaking. When I have my slides there, and I know what I'm going to talk about, and I got people there, I'm ready to go. I feel comfortable. I'm very blessed. I don't know where that comes from. If you asked me to turn one of those slides into a song, I would be nervous,
running out the back door
forever. It would be a mess.
She did do that.
She was, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so moving, right? I mean, it was. Yeah, she's awesome.
I left that that evening hopeful for the world when she mentioned that King Herod is a footnote in history to the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, and it's wild how fucking applicable that is today.
Yeah, she was really, really incredible.
So that was a great night. Yeah, so I signed up for her Substack, and now I get people are writing for her while she's battling and healing and going through that journey. And then I got your Substack. So I got two Substackers now.
There's it's actually nominated for Best Documentary. There's a documentary about a poet named Andrea Gibson called Come See Me in the Good Light. And
what streamer?
I believe it's on Apple, maybe HBO. Maybe HBO.
I get reminded that I pay for them all and don't use them.
Yeah, it's a beautiful documentary. But Andrea Gibson, who is just an awesome poet, she was a poet laureate out in Colorado, died from cancer and wrote through her dying process. And her partner, Megan, I believe Meg, she has continued to write it.
Oh wow!
Afterward. And
holy shit.
And it's really beautiful because it's a lot of like, I don't want to get past this, right? It's really, she's a powerful writer too. Meg's also a poet and a writer and an author and everything. So she was really powerful, but it's beautiful. The whole time following along with it was really just seeing it in print was moving. Now the movie is unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I bet that's a tearjerker.
Oh yeah.
Fuck. Yeah, I can, and poetry is talk about in the feels. I mean, that's the whole thing, the whole purpose of.
I love that poetry.
I bet you do, man. Baby. I bet you do.
I love that poetry,
man.
Give me a Gregory Orr book right now.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah. I'm gonna stop by the library on the way home.
Can't wait.
That's what I think. Something else. All right. Well, we're gonna land the plane. This was great. As always, I'm excited for next week. Stay tuned. Follow us on all the things if you can. And without a doubt, and it seems trivial, and I'm not trying to sound like Charlie's brain rot YouTube heroes, but like and subscribe to this stuff. That all matters. Not for us to make money. That's not really a thing. It's for it to move up the algorithm so maybe somebody out there can hear this that needed to hear that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Spray.